time! I have been waiting to do this fucking video since June 8th, when I finally got to the end, and I fucking cried, and when I praised her name. But now you are done as well. You have had time to ruminate on Sea Cats, and now we can talk about it and do a tier list.
Yeah, so real quick, for those of you who have not read Umineko, don't watch this video.
Oh yeah, well, this is full spoilers, 100%, 1000%.
Just seeing this tier list right here is a spoiler. You may not know it's a spoiler yet, but it is. So, yeah, Umineko was really fucking good. It was long as shit, though.
When did you start it? Like, early April, mid-April?
I want to say, like, near the end of April, like the last week of April, and then I finished it like the first week of August. And according to Steam, I think I put in about 120 to 130 hours reading both the question and the answer arcs. So yeah, it's really long, but it's also really good.
So you would say it was worth that time investment?
I feel like you could have shaved off like a good 20 hours from that story, because I will say that it's not perfectly paced. There are quite a few chapters that go on for a bit too long and have scenes that I don't think is really necessary, and we'll probably get into that as we talk about these characters. Like, we're not going to talk about the specific like chapters, like our chapter tier list or anything, but we might, but I do think it is really, really good. I would recommend it. Although, if you want to save on time, probably just read the manga, because the manga was written by the original author, and it is a bit more of a straightforward version of the story, and it's just a quicker read too, due to the format.
That being said, it does miss out on the voice acting, because like I read essentially the question arcs I did VN, answer arcs I did manga. The voice acting is fucking impeccable, the music is impeccable, and the sound effects are impeccable. Like, they're genuinely really fucking iconic, and so reading the manga, I'm like, as good as this is, because I love how easy it is to binge the manga, I did feel like I was missing some elements of it. But I still read quite a bit of the VN with you, and as much as I was appreciating those elements, I was also like, it definitely takes a lot longer to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
So I feel like there are pros and cons to both versions, but either the manga or the VN, you can't go wrong. It just sucks that there's no anime.
Yeah, although I did see that one, like, possible opening for an Umineko anime. It was really great. It's a real shame that an anime never happened.
Yeah. It'd be a real damn shame.
Yeah.
But before we get into the specific characters, I feel like it is important that we discuss the tiers themselves and what they mean to us specifically.
Okay.
I think the bottom tier is very easy. It's just barely there. These are going to be for the characters who are on the list because they showed up in the story, but they were there for like 2 seconds, so there's not really anything to say about them.
Yeah, we're just gonna
we can just go ahead and put them in there. Like Nanjo's son, Kumasawa's son, read by Kairi.
These are basically, they literally show up for one scene, and that's it.
I think that, that guy. I think he's also kind of in there.
Well, he shows up more than those two guys, though.
Yeah, but he's also barely there.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of Sea Cats, he maybe is on the screen for like 2% of the total story.
I don't even remember this character, the purple haired.
Oh, I don't think she's actually in it, because I know they talk about there being a fourth Chester sister who was destroyed, and I think she's supposed to be the doll that
like
Rosa broke in front of Maria. I think she's supposed to be from a side story.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think Blackler is in this tier list.
No, he's not. Which is good, because if that was the case, we should have made another tier that's not there at all.
You can make an argument, because I know technically his introduction, it's in 2 things that I think came out on the same day. It's a short story and Golden Fantasia.
Yeah.
I would argue that Burns' game, where it has, I I almost called him Blackler again. Battler as the killer with Rudolph and Kyrie. I would argue that's kind of his first appearance, because that's what it's supposed to be. It is the embodiment of Battler being the culprit.
Yeah, so in case you haven't noticed yet, these are massive spoilers, so don't watch this video unless you've actually, read it.
Or you don't care.
Which is
perfectly fair.
Which is a shame, because this, as a mystery story, it is one of the best parts of it, genuinely, is going through it and theorizing and trying to figure out who did it. Which, builds on itself as the story goes beyond. I think one of my favorite things about this story, I'm getting tongue-tied too. One of my favorite things about the story is that you spend... Well, here's the thing I realized. The first 4 books, I was spending it doing all this theory crafting, doing all this, oh my god, what if it was this, what if it was this, what if it was this? And then in the answer arc, it turns it on its head and is like, you are literally everybody in the real world, and we're deconstructing that concept of that theory making. And I fucking love that.
We'll definitely talk more about that when we get to the goats.
Well, let's go ahead and start. This tier list is in alphabetical order.
Oh, because we have to explain all the tiers. I feel like that's important, what they mean. So we talk about Barely There. F, to me, this is a character I fucking hate. I wish you weren't there. You do nothing for me. Which I don't know if I'll have anybody who's an F tier character, because even the characters that don't do a lot for me, I probably wouldn't put that low, except maybe Anti-Sumadera.
Go ahead and just put that. I'm just fucking kidding. I'm kidding.
It's like, even though I know you're kidding, I still wanted to kill you.
Yeah, you don't fuck with this, man.
You
don't fuck with this line.
Do you have anything else to say about F tier? For you, it's the same thing.
I feel like for me, these character tier lists are less about whether I like them in terms of the story and whether I just like them in general. It's like an F tier character is just a character. It's not necessarily a character I dislike because of their role in the story or because I wish they weren't in the story. It is just because, no, fuck you.
Okay.
So we're going to go ahead and just put Kasumi over the... We'll get to
And then for D tier, it's... You just didn't do anything...
That, but less vitriol, I guess.
Exactly. Like, you just didn't do much for me. C tier is very kind of similar. Like, again, to me, it's like the movie tiers, where it's like a C tier it's fine, it's inoffensive, it just doesn't do a whole lot for me. For me, a B tier is I respect you more than I like you. A is, I really like this. S is, you have a genuine argument to be my favorite. And then double S is, you are my favorite. I have multiple double S characters.
We're already cheating on
Like, I'm gonna just go ahead and say, I have 2 double S characters. It's like, I don't know which of you 2 I like more. And then for you, do you have anything else about the tiers, or is that about accurate for you?
I would say that's pretty accurate.
Because I remember for movies, for you it was an S is a perfect movie. So for this, it's like, are you very similar? It's like,
this is more of a likability kind of thing.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to rate a character, as opposed to a movie where it's like there are different elements that you can rate for a movie, like its presentation, its writing, all that stuff. With a character, it's a bit more ephemeral, where it's more of just how much do I vibe with this character, how much do I like their writing, their character arc. But I feel like it's a lot less concrete than like a movie. It's like with a movie, it's like, okay, Aladdin is a perfect movie because it gets everything right, structurally.
And it's like a perfect Vegas show.
And it's like a perfect Vegas show. And with a character, you can't quite do that, at least for me. So this one's a bit more just about how I vibe with them.
Okay.
So, shall the vibing commence?
Yes, I will let you go first.
Alright, so, should we...
Amakusa.
Alright, so, Genzo Amakusa. Cool. Fuck this guy.
No hesitation.
So, before we get to the reveal of his character, I felt like he was just kind of okay. He's the character who Ange interacts with the most during the 1998 segments. But I always felt like I didn't quite get their chemistry. Like, I don't think the chemistry quite worked.
I'd argue the character she honestly interacts with the most is Maria. It's in her head, but...
Well, yeah. But, I find him to just be kind of an okay character. He does have interesting moments, like, because, I mean, part of the plot is that, yeah, when Ange goes to the island, which, by the end of the story, I don't know if she ever does. Like, that never happened. This was all in her head because she's fucking insane.
She's nuts!
There was that moment where he was talking to his boss, and you can kind of tell that he's really hesitant about doing the job, which is killing her, which I did find kind of interesting, but other than that, I never found him to be that endearing or that interesting. For me, I'd probably put him in C tier. What about you?
I would agree. For me, Amakusa is a C tier character. He's generally fine. He's okay. I really, by the end, though, I liked him a bit more, and that was honestly just seeing the trick ending play out. Now, I will admit, I'm a magic theory guy. Ultimately, if I have to pick one, and because like I said, I read it in the manga showed me both. If I was playing the VN, I would have just picked one, and I would have picked magic. But I really like how in the trick ending it explains, no, this is exactly what he was doing. This is how he was going to kill Ange. These were all his preparations. And you find out because Ange has uncovered it and is like, I am telling you exactly what your plan is, so you know that I figured it out. And if I'm telling you this, you know you're fucked. And just seeing all of his preparations and shit, I was like, this is actually really clever. I respect this. Fuck this guy, but I respect it. And yeah, I mean, he just seemed, his general chemistry with Ange was he was a pretty cool guy. So I was like, yeah, he's a C tier. He's C for cool.
Alright. So, I know we said we're going alphabetically, but do you think we should save some of these characters for, like, later, like Ange or Beatrice?
Nah, if we're going alphabetical, like, if we're getting some of the big players out of the way early, we're getting some of the big players out of the way early.
Yeah, because pretty much all of the big players are in early, because they all have names starting with A or B. So, speaking of A, Ange.
Ange Ushinomiya.
Arguably the main character?
Definitely arguably the main character, despite not showing up until the very end of Part 3. Almost the entirety of Book 4 is like, hey, now that you have a good idea of how the story works, meet its real protagonist.
And then she's gone for, like, half of the answer arcs, too.
Yeah,
so
she's not in Part 5.
She's barely there in Part 6.
She's in there just enough in Part 6, the very end of Part 7, and then is the main character of Part 8.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Her barely being there in Part 6, what I got is one of my favorite parts of the entire story. It is her and Amakusa as well, hanging out with Featherine and learning that there's multiple message bottles and that some of them are written by different people. This is different people's interpretations or theories of what the fuck actually happened on Rokkenjima. And it was that moment where I realized, from a trick theory perspective, that is what Burn and Lambda Delta represent. And that is what the Beatrice Battler game is. It is Ange reading all these stories and thinking, how did it happen? And is there a way my brother could have escaped? And that's so fucking interesting to me. You've got Lambda Delta, the Witch of Certainty. The part of Ange's brain saying, I am certain that no one could have escaped and that we're fucked. Versus Burn, the Witch of Miracles. The part of her brain that is desperately hoping and, like, is there a way this could have happened? Is there a way at least my brother could have gotten out of it? And even the fact that Burn is actively a piece of shit and hates the idea of miracles makes sense to me in that way, because Ange is still so convinced that there can't be a miracle. She kind of hates herself for giving herself that fighting chance. It's so interesting to me. And that's why I say, as much as I'm a magic theory guy, because by the end I'm like, that is literally what the story is about. Fuck, trick ending is like so fucking interesting to me. And I loved it. Just that idea and that concept is one of my favorite parts of the whole story. And because Ange is the catalyst for that, I find her one of my favorite characters because I find it super interesting. Reading Part 4, I know you're not as big on Part 4. Part 4 is arguably my favorite of all 8, and a lot of that is because I find Ange such an interesting character. Yes, while reading all of her absolutely miserable backstory, I felt like James Madison and Hamilton. It's like, can we get back to politics, please? Can we get back to the murders? I don't want to read about this girl's sad life. It's breaking my heart. But it was still so compelling that even though I'm all about the murders, which sounds really bad out of context.
We'll put that on the YouTube. Like, that's the quote.
Yeah, and it's like, I can see myself as like a fucking meme. I'm all about the murders. I still was really invested in her story. And then when you get to Part 8, and it's still about her story and how she has learned the actual truth of what happened, and is so thoroughly in denial that she is doing all of this shit to not accept it. Again, I just find her really consistently interesting. And boy, at the end, she had me fucking crying with what happens at the... I mean, we're full spoilers, so I don't even have to be vague. Like, her reuniting with Battler, I was in fucking tears. Like, I remember telling you, I had to stop reading and just put my phone down so I could cry. And then I was like...
That just doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen super often. Like, I cry, but it'll usually be like a few tears coming down. I'm like, yeah, that got me. That was good, but I keep going.
You got the sexy cry.
Yeah, but that was not a sexy cry. That was an ugly cry. That was I need to, like, fucking weep for a little bit. Okay, now I can keep going. It fucking happened twice in the final chapter. Oh, it was lovely. And the fact that even by the end she's a writer, and I'm like, I love that because I love writing and shit. Like, Ange is my favorite character in the story. Like, to me, she is the double S character. I have another character, like I said, that can make that argument, but for me, like, I adore Ange. I don't think you like her as much as I do, though.
I don't think so. No, I do like her. She's on the upper edge of the tier list. For me, the problem with Ange is the way the story the way that they tell her story. Like, book 4, it's not my least favorite book, it's my second least favorite, because chapter 2 is my least favorite. But my problem with book 4 is, this is where the pacing problem is the worst. Like, there are times in other chapters where it'd be like, okay, there's like a scene that maybe wasn't necessary or went on too long. Book 4, that's most of it. And I feel like it has to do with the fact that, okay, number one, it's still trying to tell... Well, it's not necessarily a mystery because it just says outright that Kenzo's the killer in book 4. Where he just goes fucking crazy. But it's like, you have the Rokenjima story, you also have Ange's backstory, and you have Maria's backstory. And it's like, it's also the culmination of the first 4 books with its climax. And so it's like, there is way too much shit going on in book 4. And while the problem is that it all feels necessary because Ange and Maria's backstories are intertwined, because Maria's backstory is integral to Ange's character and like how she views the world. The Rokenjima story builds up to the climax of everything in the first 4 books. I just felt like there were a lot of scenes that could have been cut or pared down. Like, several scenes where Ange is, like, talking to the ghost of Maria or, like, playing with the 7 sisters. I feel like there were times where it's like, you could have cut this because we already get the gist of their relationship. And it's not like these scenes are really saying anything new. Then you have, like, Maria's backstory where it's like, okay, there are several scenes that basically just hammer in the message, she is this sad, lonely child. And I'm like, thanks, I get it. Okay.
Thanks, Rosa.
Thanks, Rosa, we get it. that's not to say that I don't hate. It's not to say that I hate these stories. I just felt like they could have been tweaked. And, I mean, Chapter 4 is the longest book of any of them. I feel like, okay, because on average it took me about, I want to say like 12 to 15 hours per book. Chapter 4 was 20 hours. And I felt those extra 5 hours.
I remember reading book 4 when I was at Universal. Like, I was just in line for rides and just on my phone just scrolling through text. I was like, I can't fucking get enough of this shit.
But, okay, so then after we get her backstory in Chapter 4, then she's just kind of not there for a good chunk of the answer arcs. Mm-hmm. And then she's the main character of Chapter 8. And I will say I liked her quite a bit more there. The one problem I have with Chapter 8 is that her turning around and joining the family felt a little just kind of sudden. Because it was just like, okay, like, by the end, it's like, she had turned against the family, joined up with Bern because she wants to find out the truth. Yeah. And then Bern's like, I mean, I already told you the truth, but... And then she's like, okay, here's the truth again. And Ange's like, oh no. And then she falls and, like, she kills herself. And then she wakes back up in the Golden Land. She's like, guys, I'm sorry. I was an asshole. And they're like, yeah, you were.
But we love you.
And it was like, I felt like there wasn't really a moment for her to really change her views. It just kind of, she just woke back up and was like, oh, I fucked up. You know, it felt a little sudden for me personally. But I do like her character. I would say she'd be an A or an S character for me personally, but because she is your double S, she will stay there. Okay, so should we start with which Beatrice?
Say it with me, Clay. 3, 2, 1. Beatrice!
Oh, God.
Come on, you didn't do it.
Yeah, because you're clipping out my ears and you're clipping out the mic. God damn it. Okay,
Beatrice, we had to do a fucking screech.
Oh, no, I didn't.
I know, that's why I'm disappointed.
Okay, this is going to be a long section, because Beatrice is kind of also the main character, especially in Part 7. But, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and just put her up there, right where she belongs. So Beatrice is probably my favorite character, and it's hard to say. There's so much to say about her character because there's a lot of different sides to Beatrice. There's a lot of different characters that are Beatrice. Yeah. There's at least like 3 Beatrices on the tier list we haven't even talked about yet. But as for Beatrice the Witch, okay, so when she first shows up at the very end of book 1, like the tea party, and then she becomes the main character. She becomes the main antagonist of book 2. All right, okay, you know what? No. Book 1, you never see Beatrice.
Yes. She
is just a name
and a
portrait, and manages to be absolutely terrifying. Because the first book, there's none of the weird magic-y bullshit. There's none of the theories, and there's no Bern.
Like Seven Sisters.
The Seven Sisters. There's none of that. It is just a family trapped on an island, and something is killing them. They don't even know if it's a someone. There's something killing them. And it's portrayed in such a way that it's almost like they're dealing with this eldritch entity. Like the color out of space, almost.
And in this case, the color is gold.
Because it's like, all you ever see of her is, like, the butterfly. Mm-hmm. And... yeah, it's terrifying. Just this hidden, seemingly invincible, unstoppable killer. Like, she's just killing people left and right like it's nothing. You know? And it's very effective. And then when you finally meet her proper, and the game between her and Battler begins in Chapter 2, she absolutely steals the show. The only reason Chapter 2 isn't just... I mean, it's not dog shit, but I feel like the thing that keeps it from being a bottom of the fucking barrel kind of thing, and just kind of my least favorite, is Beatrice. And I have to just point out, the voice actress's performance.
It's phenomenal.
It's Sayara Oyaka? Let me see. Hold on. Sayaka Ohara. And she has such an unbelievable range in this story because she voices several different characters, and there are just some drastic, like, tonal changes. Like, even Beatrice herself, she can veer from being this having this very elegant, dignified voice to this mad cackle.
Just pure chaotic evil.
Just pure chaotic evil. This just purely insane individual. You know, it's kind of like hearing Mark Hamill go from Luke Skywalker to the Joker almost, where it's like, okay, you have this kind of like calm, normal voice to but she steals the show with her performance. And not just in Beatrice, but in the other characters she voices as well, which we'll get to. But she makes such an amazing first impression. And like chapter 2 is her at her most evil, and she's just loving every minute of it. And then as the story goes on, her character develops so much. I would argue she is the one with the most character development in the story. How she goes from this just unrepentantly just evil monster to this incredibly sympathetic, sad character.
I think I would agree with that.
Like, I never cried while watching the VN or reading the VN, but her actual death scene in chapter 8, when I reread it in the manga, actually did make me cry.
Oh, it did?
Yeah. Her real life death is heartbreaking. Just that scene where it's her and Battler on the boat, and she gives him a kiss, and then when he opens his eyes, she's not there anymore because she dropped herself into the ocean and like tied herself to like a gold bar to sink. And it's like, after everything she's been through, after the life she's had, it's such a tragedy. And I think that's the best way to describe it, is that her life is a tragedy. You know, which we'll get more into her backstory when we get to Clair. Yeah. But I feel so sorry for this person. Just holy shit.
Hashtag poor girl.
Hashtag poor girl. But yeah, for me, she is my favorite character. So what about you?
The problem is I don't really have much to add. It's like, yeah, from the second she shows up, she completely steals the show. Like I said, I agree that I think she does have probably the strongest development of anyone in the cast. I do feel like Ange has quite a bit as well, but Beatrice has it so consistently, like, from book to book. And she's almost like a different character in every book, but it all feels like it makes sense and that it works. It's not like, oh man, like, she's just a really inconsistent character. It's like, no, she's just so fucking dynamic. I feel like she is consistently really interesting. She's consistently really entertaining. Like, I remember I first started reading this 8 years ago, and I read the first 2 books, and then when I started law school, I was like, I don't really want to focus on a bunch of shit right now, and I kind of lost where I was in part 3, and then I didn't pick it back up for 8 fucking years. I still remembered the tea party of book 2 and what she did to Rosa in vivid detail because the shit was so vile and so insane. It never
like some
left
Maria
me.
pie.
The Maria pie. No, so it was Rudolph's face is a pie. Krause's blood, like the last drop of his blood, as a wine glass, and Ava's tongue. I remember that. I don't remember what it was.
Salad or something.
Some crazy shit. And
then just Maria's head on a platter.
yeah,
I think.
it's like she's so cool, but I also just want to give her a hug because she needs one. But just
she just wanted someone to love her. Why didn't nobody love her?
I remember I just could not think of anything else but that song as I was reading her backstory.
For me, that was Maria.
That was, you said for you that was Maria, but for me that was Beatrice. Yeah, she's fucking great.
Alright, so other Beatrice. Beatrice Castiglione, the OG.
The OG, Beatrice number 1. I really don't have much to say. Like, here's the thing. Yes, she is barely there, but I don't want to give her a barely there.
She's way too important. I think
she's way too important, and I just genuinely liked her relationship and chemistry with Kinzo. It's the only time in the series Kinzo is remotely likable. Okay, I can't say that because he's just so over the top. I just enjoy his presence. That's really it. It's like she's too important, but even so, like, I like her. I feel like she's a B tier. Like, I respect the idea of the character. If she was on screen more, like, throughout the series, she might have been higher. I really like her relationship with Kinzo. I can understand why Kinzo fell so deeply for this woman. But I don't think I really have much else to say about her, unfortunately.
I would agree. It's like, she's only in it for maybe like a few hours out of like the 120. And while her impact on the story is, it's essential for the plot, she doesn't do a lot. She is the lost Lenore of Kenzo's life, which kind of is what started everything. But while she was there, she was very likable, and you understand why Kenzo fell for someone like her. It also helps that she had 10 tons of gold, but but yeah, I think B is fair. So,
before I forget, because I just noticed, we have the Rokenjima boat captain. He's definitely a barely there tier character in between Kraus and Kinzo. Because I was like, who the fuck is that? Oh, I know who that is, but if I'm asking who the fuck he is, he needs to be in BT.
Okay.
Fucking
Bernkastel, the Witch of Miracles, the bitch herself.
One of the most satisfying punches I've ever had.
There's just a scene in chapter 8 where she's like monologuing and he just Balor just fucking glocks her. They even have a special CG just for that, and it is beautiful.
And in the manga, she specifically has this bruise on her face like the rest of the fight. I was like, this is wonderful. Like, I need to see that shit again.
Let's put that on instant replay. Like, that scene in some animes where like someone gets punched and it's like it's like, if they ever did an anime adaptation, if they ever tried it again, they gotta do that. But
maybe there's a pachinko machine, because the pachinko animations actually look really good.
Yeah. So Bernkastel is arguably, well, not even arguably, she pretty much is the main antagonist.
Yeah, she is the main antagonist.
At least, it's like Beatrice is the main antagonist for the question arcs, and then it pretty quickly becomes Bernkastel. And she's an interesting character, because there are times where I'm like, I'm not sure if she's doing this out of active malice, or if she's doing this because that's just the role that's been written for her, because she has this relationship with Featherine, who is explicitly like, she's basically God in this setting, like she's the author. And
you are the audience, I am the author, I outrank you. Bonk.
And like, there were times in chapter 8 where she said, yeah, like, I'm basically just doing this because I am the villain in this story. Because, like, she's Rika from Higurashi, who was the main protagonist and the hero of the story. So it's almost like, yeah, in this story, Rika is the antagonist, while before she was the protagonist. So part of me is like, okay, like, how much of her antagonism is her playing up a part, and how much of it is just genuine malice? Because yeah, there's times where it's like she's surprisingly just kind of chill and just cool with everybody, and then there are times where she's just like, I'm gonna kill all of you, kind of hamming it up almost. I do quite like her. I like what she represents in the story. For me, it's like, I know you have your theory on what she represents, but to me, she doesn't represent something from Ange's perspective. She represents something from Featherine's perspective. If we go with the whole, like, because Featherine has the human persona of Toya, and for me, Bernkastel represents the self-loathing that artists have for themselves. That irritation at not being perfect. For me, it's the... I feel like she represents...
syndrome?
I feel like she represents two things. Number one, she is the innate desire of people to find out the truth of a mystery, to tear it open. Like, that's what she is. She is the cat that, like, rips the guts out of a mystery. It's like the people who just want the truth. They don't care who it hurts. And so in a way that's also Ange's thing, is she wants to know the truth no matter what, despite how much it hurts her. And that's part of Bernkastel. I feel like she also represents Featherine's own, like the author's own frustrations at unfinished stories or things that just don't click well. Because part of her backstory is that she was a character who was stuck in a logic error because her author gave up. And she had to figure it out for herself. And so I feel like in a way, she represents the author's own irritation at their inability to write a good story. Like, I mean, we both know that feeling of, like, when a scene or, like, a dialogue piece is just not clicking right, you get really frustrated, you don't know why. It's like, for me, that's kind of what she represents. So, I find her really interesting as a creator. She's also just awful. She's just... a common thing with... I find a common thing with Ryakushi is he loves writing terrible people who are also endlessly entertaining to watch.
Yeah, I see you on the list, Erika.
Oh, we'll get to you in a second, don't you worry.
Good.
But Umineko
add a tier
especially...
that's just good.
We add a tier above SS that's just Erika. But, Umineko particularly loves writing really entertaining villains. It's like, you fucking hate these people, but you can't hate them because they're so entertaining. Like, okay, Kenzo, not as much, I just actually hate him, but... Beatrice, Burn, Erika, it's like, they are such pieces of shit, but they're so funny and entertaining that you can't bring yourself to truly hate them. It's like, you hate them because they're villains. But yeah, I think, honestly, she's an S-tier character.
Okay. Now, before I start talking about what I think of Burn, I do want to...
First.
Are you actually making it Erika tier?
Yeah. No. I know we're not getting to Erika for a little bit, but come on. But, okay.
So, what you were saying a little bit ago about how one of the theories you have for Burn is that she represents people who just want to get to the truth of the matter no matter what. Like you said, a cat eviscerating something and like pulling out the truth like it's guts. Mm-hmm. Why would you say Burn is that instead of the goats?
Because that's explicitly what she is. That is explicitly Bernkastel's role in Chapter 7 and in Chapter 8. I would say probably what it is that the goats are more of the general public's desire to tear the truth apart, and Burn is Ange and Featherine's desire, because I don't think she's necessarily Ange's, like, representation, because it's explicitly Featherine's, like, cat.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it is Toya's own just ravenous desire to bring the truth out. But, yeah.
So, I feel like to talk about Burn, I have to talk about Rika a little bit first, because I love Higurashi, which saddens me because I have the first episode of the VN, and I was gonna start reading it, and then I did, and then I just haven't. But I've seen the anime. It's genuinely one of my favorites of all time. I absolutely fucking adore it. The idea of, kind of like what you were saying, it's like this is the role reversal. She got to be the protagonist in Higurashi, and now that we're doing something different, she gets to be the antagonist. That's a really cool and interesting idea. And something, I don't think this is ever said in the VN, because they don't, like, Higurashi's referenced a few times, so they never, like, really go into this detail. I think something I've heard is that what Burn is supposed to be is she's the embodiment of every Rika who died. And this is every version of the character who failed and met a miserable end, and this is what they became.
This bitter old hag.
And as someone who loves Higurashi, and was so... I don't know, was like so happy and so grateful to see her succeed, seeing this version is really interesting, and it's fucking heartbreaking, but it's so fascinating. So when you get Bern talking about how I am the Witch of Miracles because I searched for one, and I don't want anyone else to get one because I couldn't. I love that. Like, just seeing all of Rika's bitterness, because she definitely has a lot of bitterness in the answer arcs, and that just being directed toward other people, like, now I am the one in control. It's not cathartic. It's like, I hate seeing this happen to Rika, but it's also kind of cool in its own way. So I do definitely have a soft spot for Bern. Now, as someone who watched the first season of Higurashi Go and fucking hated it, like, the fact that it exists actively upsets me because of what they do. Not really what they do to Rika, although I hate it. It's what they do to Sadako, which we'll definitely get into when we talk about Lamb. It's the one part of Magic Theory I really don't like. I don't like to
be
acknowledge
fair, Go
that
happened
this
after Umineko, so you could always ignore it if you want.
I don't know if it did in terms of its time frame, though.
No, it definitely didn't, because it was like the 80s. Or it was before that, I think, because I feel like Higurashi happens like in the 70s, doesn't it?
I think it is the 80s. I want to say it's 1985. When did Sea Cat happen? Because I know it's
1986.
86, so Higgs happened like right before it. But that would mean that the stuff in Go does happen after, because they're quite a few years older.
1983.
Higurashi?
Yeah.
Okay, there might be a way where this can work and I can still ignore Go's existence. That's nice. That actually makes me happy. I really don't like it. But just Bern on her own.
That's really funny.
Just how much I hate it?
Yeah.
I do. To me, Higurashi has literally a perfect ending. It is these characters fucking struggled, and they got there. And you know what got them through it? It was their bonds. It was their friendship. Like, I know there's memes about how Higurashi is a story about the power of friendship, and it's literally about friends killing each other most of the time. But it is genuinely one of my favorite stories about friendship and how, like, people's bonds. I remember seeing a parody episode of, I don't even know what the fuck it was from. It was this random clip on my YouTube feed about a fucking gacha show, and the characters from Higurashi were summoned in a gacha, and they were gonna fight each other, and then they did it. They all just, like, got together, held hands, and said something along the lines of, we went through so much shit, and we got through it together, that we made a pact that no matter what happens, no matter what universes we find ourselves in, we will never hurt each other again. And I remember watching it and going, that is exactly what the characters of Higurashi would do after surviving everything that happened in Hinamizawa. And seeing Satoko, like, see everything that happened to Rika and go, I don't care, I'm still gonna make her suffer. Like, no. Like,
No.
I know I'm supposed to be talking about Sea Cat's characters, but I'm talking about Higurashi. But just, it bothers me to my core.
I know you're not alone on that, because apparently it is a very divisive show.
But back to Bern. Like, the Rika connection, I do think makes her super fucking interesting. But even without it, just this... What I love about the witches is how for them, it is just a game. They're just fucking around, but Bern just really hates to lose. Which I can relate to. And just how... just more angry she keeps getting. Like, I love her relationship with Erika. It's like, this is my piece. This is my self-insert. And how mad she is. Like, she will just endlessly talk shit to her. I know in the manga, like, she is particularly vicious.
Like, fix your retarded
theory. She's like, fix your fucking retarded theory. Like,
she there's a lot more cussing in the manga.
I think there is. I was like, damn, like, she is going off. It's...
Mom's calling me.
Oh. You know, just like pause.
Hello. How are you?
Okay, we are back. We may resume. So I think what I was...
Sorry about that.
So I believe I was talking about Bern and her relationship with Erika. And what I really find fascinating about it is...
the self-hatred?
Yes. Which, again, if this is like all of Rika's bitterness and all of her failure, it makes sense that she would look upon herself that way. And it really comes down to, it's like, from the just pure Seacat side of it, it's pretty interesting and very entertaining. From the Higurashi side of it, it's really fucking sad. And I definitely feel like Bern, like, the way I see Bern's antagonism in this story, overall, it is because this is her role. She is like, alright, I gotta punch the clock as the antagonist today. And, like, her last scene with Lamb, to me, that's really what it is. It's like, yeah, I had to play the villain this time, and I really played it up. Like, especially at the end of Part 7, when she's, like, fucking with Will, Lion, and Ange. But I do feel like, to a degree, she enjoyed it. It wasn't just, I gotta play the part, so I'm gonna do it. It's like, no. This time loops again really piss me off. And if this is the version of her that failed, that malice...
She doesn't want to see someone else succeed.
She doesn't want to see someone else succeed. It's like, you know that meme of, it should have been me! I feel like part of that is actually kind of in her, and that's why she's just so venomous toward them. So I would agree. For me, Bern is an S tier character. Maybe A, but I feel like she's in that A to S range, so I'll keep her there.
Alright. But to love.
Damn it.
This absolute
mad
moron.
lad. This moron. Small fucking bombs for a small fucking brain. I love Battler so much.
He really is a small brain loser, isn't he?
So, the first thing about Battler, Clay, his drip is immaculate. I love Battler's suit.
His drip gets him a minimum S tier.
It gets him a minimum S tier. Like, I remember when watching Symphogear in the first season, my boy Genjuro was wearing, like, almost the exact same fit as Battler. You trying to get out, Bahamut?
Your cat doesn't know what he wants. He keeps
really
trying to come in here, and then as soon as he comes in here and the door closes, he's like, oh, let me out.
I think part of it is because of how hot this room is.
It's not that hot right now.
I mean, not at the moment, but like, it's still uncomfortably warm. Alright, Bub. You're trapped in here now. No, you're not. You are now officially leaving. Okay, bye. I love you. Bye-bye. So, Battler's drip is fucking immaculate. And anytime I see something that looks remotely similar, I am excited. I very nearly bought a version of his suit to wear it to Barbie. I didn't because it would have been like $60, but I almost did. On top of that, what I like about Battler is, well, A, he's funny as hell. A lot of it is because the idea of the detective is a fucking moron. But I love... I mean, to use an Umineko thing like you get with Will, you can't ignore the heart, and I love Battler's heart. I love how the reason he hasn't been with his family is because of the fight he's had with his dad. He's like, I'm so disgusted that my dad was not only cheating on my mom, but as soon as my mom was dead, he married the other woman. Which, there's
not
reasons for that. Like, it's a terrible look. And I love how Battler's like, no. You have stained my mother's honor, and now you're just trampling over her corpse. You have disgusted me. I am ashamed to have your blood. I am ashamed to wear the same family crest as you. Fuck you. I love that. I mean, we're getting to the backstory, but it's full spoilers, so we can. His relationship with Sayo, his relationship with Shannon, I was like, yeah, they're both mystery buffs, and that's just really cute and really sweet. And how she was like, he's the one for me. This is my knight that will save me. And Battler's just like, dude,
I get to say cool shit.
Yeah, I get to say cool shit. It's like, I have a friend. And I feel like, yeah, he had a crush on her, and I feel like that was very genuine. But
It was a childhood crush.
It was a childhood crush. To him, it never really evolved beyond that. Now, maybe if he hadn't left the family, it probably would have. I 100% believe it would have. But he never meant anything manipulative by it. He's like, no, like, I want to say something nice to you to cheer you up. Because that's just the kind of fucking person he is. I love how... I hate it, but I love it. That when he's actually doing the mystery in part 2, he's like, on the one hand, I have to believe that a witch did it. Because the alternative is it's one of my family. And I refuse to believe that one of my family or one of the close family friends could be a fucking murderer. It can't be true. I refuse. It's a bit infuriating, especially in part 2, because he keeps going back and forth between, like, it has to be a witch in the 19th birthday. It's not my family, and then there's no such thing as witches. It has to be one of these motherfuckers. But the heart of it is something that I really love, and his relationship with Ange, and you get a little bit of backstory. It's like, yeah, as much as he hated their dad, and the fact that Ange's existence is proof of his dad's infidelity, he adored his younger sister. Like, I don't want to have anything to do with this son of a bitch, but I want to spend time with my sister. I want to get to know my sister. And it's the sweetest fucking shit. I just really like his back and forth with Beatrice. Like, Battler can say the dumbest shit, but then he can also be really fucking clever, and then just, they're back and forth, so like, say it in red, say this in red, repeat this, bitch, and then, like, another thing to say about Beatrice is I like how, even though she invented the rules of the game, she started learning how to play her own game as the game went on. I really like that. And the fact that by the end of the story, you realize, oh, the reason Battler's so bad at this is because he literally has brain damage. That actually makes a lot of sense to me. And it also makes all of the games he played with Beatrice feel that much more meaningful. It's like, it is actually fucking Dante's Inferno. It is Beatrice trying to lead Dante. Now that he has gone through hell and in purgatory, she is trying to save his soul and take him to the Golden Land. And it's, like, the most beautiful shit, and it's, like, I hate that this is one of my favorite love stories, because it's, you know, incest. Well. Thanks, Kenzo.
Well, that too.
But I'm like, I still love it, because it's just so sweet and so genuine, and then you get, like, part 6. Now that Battler has figured everything out, and he's the eternal sorcerer and shit, he's got the drippy-ass cape. He still can't ignore his own heart. Because he gives Erika tools that she really shouldn't have because he feels bad. I remember reading it and I was like, to me it felt a little bit more like he was being too cocky. Rereading it and seeing the VN is like, okay, it's not cockiness. It is just like, I feel bad. And I want to make it a fair fight because of my honor and my sense of fair play, which Erika was playing into because she's a vile little cretin and the best thing in the story. But
first of all, it's cretin. If you're going to insult me, do it correctly. I know, I intentionally fucked
yeah,
up.
I was like, that's not the line.
It's the opposite.
First of all, it's creep if you're going to threaten me to do it properly. But, yeah, I fucking love Battler. Battler is an S tier character. He's on my, like with Beatrice, he's on my short list for arguably being a double S character. He doesn't crack my personal top 2. He doesn't quite dethrone Ange, but I love this fucking bastard so much.
Cornelia.
Well, I mean, you haven't said
oh, you know, that's right. Sorry. I mean, honestly, there's not a whole lot else to say, just holy shit, Battler. He is very likable, very entertaining. This poor son of a bitch. Because we didn't even get to talk about what happened to him. So after Beatrice threw herself into the sea, he tried to save her, and in the attempt, he got really fucked up. And then he got hit by a car. And now he has brain damage. So, and his fate by the end of the story is fucking heartbreaking. Because, yeah, he did survive what happened on Rokinjima. But in a way, he still died, because he went into the ocean, and Battler died, and somebody else walked away. And what's so tragic is the way they explain it is, or the way he explains it is, I have the memories of Battler, but because of my brain damage, I can't recognize them as my own memories. They are somebody else's, and I am terrified that one day I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be Battler again. And that means that the person I am is dead. And that's why he doesn't reunite with Ange for decades, because of just how terrified this new person is. And then he finally gets to meet her, you know, when they're both old. He's like, what, in his 60s at that point?
I think
60s
so.
or 70s?
Featherine hasn't aged a day.
Because of course not. But, you know, they're in their, like, 50s and 60s at this point. They're old people who are reaching near... And they're not the end of their lives, but they're getting there. And he just starts... He breaks down because he realizes that he's been keeping Ange from reuniting with her brother because of that fear, and it was unfounded. Because he meets her, and he's still Toya. And the last scene where they go to the orphanage, and Ange specifically rebuilt that orphanage to look like the mansion, and he gets, and like he has like that vision of just him seeing like the family and all the other characters, and it's like it's basically the ending to Titanic. Especially in the manga, it looks a lot like that. Is fucking heart-wrenching. Battler is, like Beatrice, is a contender for my favorite character purely for that alone. Everything else is absolutely great. I love his character development. I love how he evolves as the game goes on. He starts off as this just scared kid who doesn't know what the hell he's doing, to being quite good at the game.
Like, shout out to the end of part 3 where he's like, okay, Beatrice, we're playing, let's go. And he's not even... That's probably the only time Battler does not have a sense of fair play. Where he's like, I hate you so much, I'm gonna use the fact that you don't understand the game to my advantage. Fuck you.
He just bullies her. Good. Good. Yeah, he's just so good. He's so entertaining. Battler and Beatrice, power couple, just perfect. Except for the incest part, but you know, we'll just kind of like, it's okay. In heaven or purgatory, there that doesn't matter as much.
That's true, and that's kind of part of her motivation. It's like, hey, it's like we won't have bodies in the Golden Land, like it'll be our souls, so it doesn't. It's fine.
We'll be together forever and ever.
When somebody loves me. Which we're almost there, but we're on Cornelia.
She's a real creep. Okay, Cornelia is almost a barely there character, but she does play a bigger role than, you know, these schmucks down here. Being the lackey for another S-tier character, Knox, which we'll get to her in a couple characters. Cornelia, I think, like, her and Gertrude, I feel like we could probably just talk about them both at once.
I think so.
They're fine. I find them very interesting, just their concept, in that they are angels and not the demons that we've been dealing with up until that point. And I like how they serve a similar role in that they tell the red truth to basically deny theories. But I like how it's portrayed is that they set up barriers to essentially prevent theories that this person could have escaped this way from a closed room, because that's primarily what they do.
Yeah. I think one of them is supposed to be the door and the other is supposed to be the window. I don't remember which one is which. I think, Cornelia is the window, because that's how Battler escapes the room, is going out the window, and that's why Erika is really mad at her.
I find I find them to be kind of entertaining. Like, their way of speech is like, let it be known, this fight is utterly meaningless.
Yeah, I think in the manga it was like every line of dialogue started like, please allow me to speak, and I don't know why, I just really dug it. I also just love their outfits.
Yeah, the weird,
I'm just a sucker
the
for
weird
uniforms.
non-made thing going
Yeah,
on.
it's kind of cool.
Yeah, do you have anything else to say about it?
Not really. Like, I would agree, like, they're in the story enough to not be barely their characters. I don't know where exactly to put, like, they're certainly not F. I don't even think I would say D. They're like C, maybe B, but probably about C.
I would probably say C tier, where's
between George and the Goats.
Okay.
Now we get to Clair, so we get to Sayo. Like, I feel like this is when we really get to talk about the actual tragedy of Sayo Yasuda.
Oh boy!
When somebody loved me.
So,
this girl is nuts.
So I will say, I said earlier that Chapter 4 has the most pacing issues. Chapter 7's a close contender, and that's primarily due to Sayo's backstory, because the way Chapter 7 is organized is, okay, the first half is essentially Kenzo's backstory and just kind of figuring some things out. Then the second half of that story, of that chapter, is just the backstory of Sayo. And I feel like it goes on too long. Like, I feel like I can definitively say there were a few times where we could have cut the chapters short or cut them out completely. Because it's divided into, like, I want to say, like, 9 chapters.
Something like that.
And I feel like you could have shortened it. Because a lot of it essentially says the same thing. This is a sad, lonely, misbegotten child that nobody cares about. And her life sucks. It's kind of the same thing with, like, Maria's and Ange's backstory. I'm like, I get it. Your life sucks. Stop. Like, at that point, the reader gets the point, and to repeat the point is to drag it out. Because there are times where repeating a point is important.
Without love, it cannot be
Without
seen.
love, it cannot be seen. Without love, it cannot be seen. Without love, it cannot be seen. But he says that so many fucking times. I should have done a drinking game. But
so you can also do a drinking game where he fell like a puppet whose strings had been cut.
that happens a lot too.
It's like at least once per book.
So I will say that I feel like you could have shortened it because I get it. But this poor fucking child and her entire life. I will say, when it comes to the character of Clair herself, because Clair is just another disguise, essentially. In Will's words, it's basically a respect for the dead, almost. I didn't like that. I will go ahead. I think the character of Sayo is really, really good and really interesting. And I mean, she's, Beatrice and all these other characters. But Clair herself, I feel like at that point in the story serves no purpose. Because at this point in the story, it still hasn't told you outright who they are. But any reader with working brain cells has figured it out.
So not Battler.
So not Battler. It took him way
Which
too long.
at that point, Battler knows who it is.
At that point, Battler knows who it is. But it's like, at that point, any reader with working brain cells understands who Beatrice's true identity is. They understand who this character is. There is very little point in having this, like, stand-in character. It would have been, for me, it would have been more satisfying if we were just talking to Sayo instead of another facsimile. And I think her design is fine. It's fine. But I feel like that's the part that bothers me the most about it, is that at this point, the subterfuge is no longer needed. I know the point, I know, like, kind of the thing with the VN, at least, is that the VN's a lot more open-ended. It's like, you have to infer a lot of things, especially when it comes to Sayo. And the manga is a lot more clear-cut. It tells you a lot of things outright. Because, I mean, even the actual solution of, like, who the true killers are, like, what happened, could still be possibly left up to interpretation, whereas in the manga, it is, like, outright, like, no, this is absolutely who did it. But I felt like here the subterfuge was an irritation. It actually kind of took away from the story in a way, because it's like, it took away the reward, almost, of the viewer figuring it out. By just kind of, like, dangling, like, I'm not going to tell you who it is. I'm still not going to tell you who it is, even though we all know who it is at this point. And it's like, it kind of takes away that, like, the haha moment that you get in a lot of other mysteries, which could be kind of the point, because, like, with Erika would be like, we're not doing the stupid disguise, we're talking to Sayo. Whereas Will is a lot more respectful because he's more about the heart of the mystery and the why done it than the who done it. But at the same time, me as the reader, it just rubbed me the wrong way. So, as for where I would rank her, it's interesting because as a concept, I do not like Claire the character, but as Sayo the character, I think she's incredibly important and she's a very good character. So there's that weird kind of, like, I'm not quite sure if I want to rank her based on Claire or if I want to rank her based on Sayo.
I would, before I get into my thoughts and talking about yours as well, because there is no one here that is Sayo, unless we argue that Shannon, but Shannon is still kind of her own thing as well, I feel like Claire is the closest we have to just Sayo, so we should probably rank her as that.
So I would probably put her in A, but what about you?
So, the first point you made that I'm going to disagree with you heavily on is her design. I love her design because I love the idea of it. This was her alpha design for Beatrice. It was like, okay, a witch. You know, a witch is something that's very magical. It's very powerful. It's something that I can fantasize about to distract myself from my life and how much I hate it. Something that can whisk me away. And I want it to be, you know, very tall, very beautiful, you know, have a very unique look to her, and that's what Claire is. And I just think it's a really cool idea, and I don't know why. I think the mint hair I just think is really dope looking. And I feel like even in a way, what I like about it being Claire as the stand-in, because I don't dislike it anywhere near as much as you do. Part of it is because that's the kind of detective Will is. Like, I'm still gonna let you have this because that's important to you. But I like how you don't see Beatrice up there, you don't see Shannon, you don't see Cannon. A lot of the layers are stripped away. But Sayo does not want to ever be seen as Sayo Yasuda. She hates that persona and that person so much that even at the end, she has to have something. She has to have some form of protection, some form of wall. So the last one standing is... I mean, even still, Shannon is still her original persona, because even as a kid, she still was imagining Shannon. But it's her last defense mechanism, and I like that a lot. Part of it might also be that I read it in the manga. And in the manga, you get to see these events, and while you never see Sayo's face, you do see just this little girl doing stuff. But the face, you know, it's an anime and a manga. Like, the hair is covering the eyes, so you never quite see it. And I loved that. It was like, I know who this is, but I think this is a really cool, clever way of showing this. And then in the final arc, I think this was in part 8, if not, it might have been in part 7, you do get moments of just, this is Yasu. And you actually get to see, like, this is what she looks like during the time of Rokenjima. This is her wearing the dress, and I think she looks great. I really love the design. This poor kid. This poor girl. Like I keep saying, like, the entire time I was reading her backstory, it's just, when somebody loved me, especially with Battler. Because that is when she felt beautiful. That's when everything was fine. Because that's what she wanted. Someone to look at her with some degree of affection. And she got it. And it was like, this is everything I could ever want. the fact that I want there to be something more with him, I feel like I'm being greedy. I feel like I'm asking too much. Maybe for a witch, that's something that's perfectly fine. For just a regular human, like, that's not okay. I love how there's a point in her life where she's like, you know what? Witches are really fucking cool.
I'm gonna be a witch.
I'm gonna be a witch. So I am going to, like, completely split my psyche, and there's the part of me that is the witch, and it's just leaving behind the part of me that's a human. But I'm gonna take care of the human self because she's a good girl, because she needs it. I'm like, what the fuck happened to you? Well, I know what happened to you is, the cliff.
It's like, I know
madness, as you know, is like gravity. All it takes is
like,
a little push.
Alright, because it's like, okay, I know they said that when she fell off the cliff, like, she just had damage in, like, her lower body. But I'm like, okay, there's no way her brain didn't get jostled around for that. Not to mention the incest thing. So she's probably more than a little inbred at that point.
Oh, 100%.
So she's at least schizophrenic. Like, I feel like she at least has, like, actual multiple personality disorder.
Well, I mean, very clearly
she very clearly does.
Has that one. But, like, also, like, the active hallucinations. Like, Gap is not another personality. That's just someone she made up that she actively talks to. And it's like, to me, it feels like it goes beyond just an imaginary friend. Like, no, like, this person is crazy. Excuse me. But still very sympathetic and still very interesting. Does she take it too far? Yes! She plans to murder these people.
Because we'll all be together in the Golden Land.
But even then, because that's the thing about it, it's not just like, I've been hurt, so I'm gonna hurt everybody. Like fucking Sakura from Fate. To me, it does come across as weirdly well-intentioned. At least towards, like, George and Jessica. It's like, we'll all be together, so it'll be okay. And, like, me having this body that is incapable of love, this furniture-like vessel, I can fix this. And also, as she's, like, writing all of these murder mysteries and stories as both a way to vent her frustration and also just for when Battler comes back, it's like, dude, I wrote all these, like, murder mysteries. Like, it's with the family. I know that's fucking weird. But we have something we can go over. And, like, I want to see you read my work and theorize and shit. One of her rules is, someone stop me. Because I know what I'm planning. And I don't want to go through with it because I do love some of these people. And as horrible as some of them are to me, Natsui,
Kenzo,
the rest of them don't deserve what I'm planning. I feel like she's such a fucking interesting character. She's an easy S tier for me.
Alright. Dlanor A. Knox.
Would you like to take the reins on this?
Die the death. Sentenced to death. The great equalizer is the death. I fucking love Knox. She is
She's
like
so
such
cool.
an easy S character. She's like such an easy S tier character. Not because she's particularly interesting in terms of like her like backstory or anything, although I do think there's some of that there. I really like her conversations with Erika in particular, but I love who she is in the story. It's like, okay, Battler's gotten used to dealing with Beatrice and her shit, so now we're gonna add some restrictions. Knox's laws. And I love how as soon as she enters the fray, all of Battler's old tricks no longer work. Because a lot of his tricks relied on the fact that, like, yeah, I can explain these deaths away literally any way I want. Mm-hmm. Because all I have to do to win the game is basically say, it can't just be done with magic. Here's some ways it could have been done with tricks. And Knox is like, you can't do a lot of that anymore, because this is a mystery story, and mysteries have rules. And I love how it immediately elevates the challenge of the mystery, because it's like, yeah, you can't rely on your old tricks anymore, But in a way, it also makes it a little easier because it recontextualizes the story into a mystery story. I mean, they were always mysteries, but now they are following the rules of a mystery. And Battler has to learn from that. And yeah, whenever he fights against Knox, it is some good shit. Like the entire thing in Kenzo's study where it's like, okay, how did Kenzo leave the room? Or like the trial at the end of Chapter 5, because the trial is probably like one of my favorite fights, just because of how cool it is. I really like her character. And again, like, I do find her conversations with Erika to be really interesting. But what about you?
I'm annoyed because I had some shit I was gonna say,
and
then
I
I immediately forgot all of it.
Oh.
And I'm like, fuck. So the things I like about Knox, number one, it's just the memes, the die the death, sentence to death, great equalizer is death shit. I fucking love it. Number two, oh, I remember what I was gonna say. One of the things I absolutely love about this character is once she sets up her restrictions, that's when Battler is able to actually solve it. Because with it just being super open-ended, you can do whatever bullshit you want. Small bombs, Beatrice allowed it because she thought it was funny. He's not getting anywhere. Now that he has been told, this is how a mystery works. These are, like you said, these are the rules. These are what you can't do. And now that you know what you can't do, by reading between the lines, you can find out what you can do and who is capable of doing it. And it's not until he actually has that set of rules that he's able to figure out, wait a second. Oh, and I do really like that. This is never, I don't think this is ever said in the actual story proper, but in the tips it's brought up that, like, yeah, like, she is essentially based off of a famous writer, I don't remember his name, but it is Knox.
It was Knox.
And how, in lore, she killed him. Because I guess at some point, like, he didn't follow the rules of the mystery or some shit, and at one point she's like, yeah, he's not doing his job well enough as, like, one of the great founders and protectors of the mystery genre, so I took care of him. Because, like, it doesn't matter, I am completely unbiased. I think that's really fucking cool. I love that she's just considered the hanging judge. She's like, yeah, like, it's all about death, which, from murder mysteries, makes a lot of fucking sense that the character who's obsessed with how mysteries work would be obsessed with death. Me personally, she's not an S tier character. She's a very high A. But I like her a lot. I do think she is fun. She is very hype. And like you said, I love how once she shows up, the rules of the story change. But the story, in a way, almost becomes strong. At least, like, the mystery itself feels like it becomes better and a lot more solvable now that there's rules to play with.
Mm-hmm. Well, I figure we can do this and then we can end it here, because we've been doing this for like an hour.
We've been doing this for a while. So what I was going to say,
good.
Before you made a new tier for her, what I was going to say is simply by the S tier's existence, this placement is possible for Erika Ferruto. Because this to me is the easiest S out of anybody. She is by
such a piece of shit.
The most entertaining character in the entire story. This includes super chaotic evil Beatrice, Ava, Kenzo, the fucking goats. Erika, to me, is the most entertaining character. Now, in the VN, having also seen that, it still very much holds true. Because, like, her voice acting, it's very passionate, it's very fun, just her fucking English, like, I love the and then just that scene, oh, very good, one more, that scene is gold, I love it, but I read the manga,
she gets the best
faces.
Like, as I was going through Chapter 5 and 6, you kept sending me the faces she would make at a certain scene. It's like, oh my god.
It's like, I love the faces.
This completely unhinged little gremlin.
Yes! And then just... First off, just her introduction, like the goofy-ass chopstick shit, I think it's just really funny. It just
Chopsticks are the finest implements. It's like she gets so, and she looks almost aroused in the VM,
Yeah,
she has like an aroused
really
face for it.
Does. Like, it looks like that face Yuno makes in Future Diary.
Like, what do you do with those chopsticks, Erika?
I like her relationship with... Okay, I like her relationship with Battler consistently. But I like it in part 5 at the start, where it's... Here's two people because Battler's being played by Byrne, so he's not being played by someone with brain damage.
He's not being
So he's able to be really fucking smart. And I liked seeing that. It's like, here's what happens when the detective isn't actively stupid, and they're playing off each other, and they're able to solve the mystery. That's really cool.
And they actually did it really well.
They did. And then you get her motivation, where it's like, Battler wants to solve it because, like, oh, this is this thing that's been, like, tormenting my family for years. I want to pull it off. I want to see if I'm smart enough.
Erika's like, I just want to do it to see Jessica's dumb bitch face. You know?
Yeah, it's like, now that her dad isn't the one getting everything, I want to see how she looks. I want to see how miserable she is. My sincerest pleasure is seeing someone who is so confident and so haughty or complacent, and seeing them fail. And seeing them brought down to someone else's level, or if they've got secrets, their face when those secrets get exposed. I am an intellectual rapist.
Actual quote.
I love violating someone mentally, emotionally, and
maybe
physically. And it just brings me joy. It is, in fact...
And then Balor's just like, oh my god.
Like, oh, you're a problem! Why took you so long, idiot?
That was like the first ever meme of Umineko I ever saw. I didn't even know who that character was.
And you're like, no, that tracks. I love that shit. I love how much she comes to hate Battler. Even in part 5, once they have that fight in Kinzo's room, which I love, and she is pissed. And I love the part after where she's like theorizing. She's like, I figured out, you son of a bitch. You didn't jump out the window. You didn't actually jump out the window. You climbed out the fucking rain gutters.
And he's like,
yeah,
of course I did.
Yeah, no shit. No sane person would actually jump out the window. I was just trying to prove you can use the window to escape. You didn't actually prove anything. What are you talking about? I proved it. I was right.
She's so mad.
She's lost her marbles. And then just, again,
and then this is her and her sanist.
It is her and her sanist. And the faces she's making in the manga. And her faces when she's talking to Natsu. He's like, I know your secret. Your dirty little secret. It's great. It is gold. I love how at the end of the trick ending, Ange hallucinates Erika, because that is what happens in the trick ending. She becomes Erika, and in the manga, you just get this fucking teethy shark tooth smile. It's good, and I love it.
So
I love in part 6 that she is the killer, and she's so unhinged. Like, they were all alive when I did it. They were all playing dead, and I got to be the killer, because I'm not the detective anymore, you little shit!
The detective can't be the killer, but I'm not the detective in this game.
Like, I killed your family, your stupid little family! And she's just so vile and awful, and every time she's on screen, it is a blessing.
Oh yeah, very good. One more. She's so awful. It's like, you pretty much nailed it on the head. Like, she is the most vile in this series that has fucking Kinzo and
and Beatrice. Beatrice is also pretty fucking vile.
Beatrice,
Kairi,
Kasumi. With all these characters, she somehow manages to be the absolute worst person here. But unlike some of those other characters, I love every second of it. Because she's so entertaining in just how awful she is. She is this disgusting little detective gremlin who just revels in ruining everyone's day. Like, she gets off on ruining people's days. That's the kind of person she is. what I find interesting is my personal theory on what she represents in the story is, to me, it's like, okay, like, so the goats represent the people's desire to find out the truth and dismantle the Rokkenjima mystery. Bern represents Featherine's own desire for the truth. Lambda Delta, I think, well, we'll get to her when we get to her. For me, what Erika represents, Erika to me is like an influencer. Like, I know,
I remember you saying
so
that.
like, you know, like, this was 1998 when the internet was really big and the Rokkenjima mystery really kicked off on the internet. To me, she's almost like, I mean, YouTube didn't really exist back then, but she's almost like the YouTube star, or like the online influencer, like the TikToker, or that just has like a channel that's just like dissecting the mysteries and all these little mysteries and just like proving everything wrong. And she's just this particularly vile internet troll who loves tearing apart people's theories.
I've seen a lot of memes comparing her to Ben Shapiro.
So theoretically, let's say that the piece of candy was under the cup, and let's say, as an example, that you had your eyes closed. Wouldn't it be easy to say that the piece of candy disappeared because your eyes were closed? You stupid little chick.
Can we just shout out how there is an entire scene, an entire fight of her just trying to disprove the existence of witches to a child because she just is having a bad day.
It's
and
because
just
she's
wants
salty
to
about the
be,
last
she
chapter.
just wants to be petty. And how even her allies are saying, this is not worth anybody's time.
They have to literally drag her away from it.
Yeah, they're like, this is a massive waste of everybody's time. Like, it's one of those things you were talking about. Like, this could be cut and nothing would change.
No, you can't cut that.
I was about to say that,
can't
but
cut that.
I would be sad if it was cut because it adds so much. It's so funny. It is so just horribly in character for this person.
That's the thing. It's like, does it add anything to the plot? No, but it also does a lot for the characters themselves. And it also just kind of, what it does in that chapter is it just displays how just unhinged she is. Because it's like, even in chapter 5, while she is definitely a bit crazy, she's also consistently winning. So she is like, she's very smug. I mean, she's always smug, but she is like, okay, I'm the one in charge because I'm the detective. I have main character syndrome. That is how it is.
I remember there's a face in the manga where it's just like super zoomed in. And she's like, I have detective authority.
And she's got main character syndrome in chapter 5. In chapter 6, she's on the ropes. She doesn't have her detective authority anymore, which is by design, but she got embarrassed in chapter 5 because it's like she won, and from the jaws of victory, she was dealt a losing hand. Or I don't know.
It's more like, okay, so what you're
she
trying to say is she
won.
snatched defeat from the jaws of victory.
Yes,
but
that.
It's not quite that, because it's less that she loses, and it's more like a stalemate, which for her is embarrassing enough
for
to
her.
be a
It's
loss.
losing. And she
And
knows
for Bern,
this is her last.
she considers that too.
And Erika knows this is her last chance not to fuck up.
I was so fucking
yeah.
happy when she shows up in part 8. I was just grinning from ear to ear. I was so excited.
But yeah, I really like my own personal theory that she's basically an internet troll that just takes delight in dismantling other people's theories. Like, I could just imagine her on a forum like a person just posted this on a forum like, okay, here's my theory about what happened. This is what happened on Rokkenjima, and she's just fucking furiously tapping away. She's like, no, you fucking retard. This is how it actually happened. Fucking lol. Don't at me, bro. Stuff like that.
See, I feel like what I think about Erika from that perspective is what you were saying about Bern. This is the person who wants to just tear apart the mystery and get to the core without caring about who she hurts or anything like that. And essentially, it's like, this is...
But she's also an internet troll in her
This is what Ange could become. Because in the trick ending, that is exactly what she becomes. Like, if anything, it's like, this is the cautionary tale of, Ange, I understand you want to learn the truth, but there is a way to go about it. And if you're not careful, if you're a detective who ignores the heart, this is what happens. You're just the best character.
So we're just gonna put her.
She just gets her own spot.
All right. So I think that's a good place to call it for right now.
Okay.
We still have quite a few characters to get through, which, to be fair, I feel like...
there's at least 7 of them that are just going to get their own spot together.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. So we will see you guys next time.